Welcome to part 2 of my analysis and presentation of Hercules Metals, a spectacular explorer story in the US copper market. Multi-bagger potential, low risk, but you really need to know what you get yourself into and how to play this right. Let's go. Welcome to Hot Trades of the Day, your show for swing trading ideas for the coming days, weeks and month. So as always, with the company presentations, housekeeping first, because that always comes up. I do not hold shares of Hercules Metals yet. I am interested in the company at a certain share price. We'll talk about this later. I am also not getting compensated by Hercules Metals for this analysis. I just do this because I find this company very interesting. With that said, this is part 2 of the 2-part series about Hercules Metals. So if you have not seen part 1, where we talk about the history and the Leviathan project and the Idaho copper belt, all things you need to know to fully understand Hercules Metals, I highly recommend that you watch the video. Here is the link for part 1. Please watch this first before you watch this part 2, because I'm not going to go over all that stuff again. We're going to jump right into the next part of this presentation and analysis, and here we talk about the share price. As you can see, crazy developments in the share price. 2022, end of 2022, 2023, this was the hot commodity stock, gaining over 2,000%. You see the hockey stick here, but you also see that afterwards we had a pretty steep correction and then basically a big bottoming formation and downtrends. What's going on? Where does this weak performance come from? What does that mean? And this is all important to put all this in the right context. So we have this crazy discovery of this new potentially tier 1 copper project in the US that nobody had even known about. We have the Idaho copper rush afterwards as a result of this discovery by Hercules Metals, where Barrick, Rio Tinto, BHP all just storm into the copper belt and stake claims or stake ownerships in some of the companies that are active there. As a result, the stock price shoots up. But what usually happens afterwards is, okay, so now we have this crazy discovery. Hercules Metals has these amazing drill holes. Well, now we need to do more exploration, and the euphoria kind of dies out. Then Hercules Metals did do more exploration in the Leviathan project, and the exploration was not a disappointment, but it was a disappointment by the high expectations that were obviously triggered by these super drill holes that they hit with high copper grades for the US. And this is completely normal. When you have a completely new copper deposit or deposit of any metal that you find, you start drilling around, you do step out drilling, meaning you go 200, 500, 800, a kilometer meters away from the original drill holes because you want to see how far does this deposit go. It's obvious that a lot of the drill holes going to disappoint, right? Because you kind of trial and error and see where things are going. Now, with today's technology, this has become more sophisticated, but it still is a little bit you shoot in the dark. Now, in the later drill holes of the exploration, Hercules Metals was actually able to hit big on copper again, right? So they delivered, but it was kind of towards the end of this exploration program. And at that time, a lot of people had already kind of turned their back on Hercules Metals and kind of forgotten about the stock. It was super hot in 2023. It was hot in the beginning of 2024, kind of like an echo effect of the run-up of 2,000% of the share price. And then kind of nothing happens and everybody kind of forgot about it. But the most important part to understand is at the end of the exploration program, the follow-up, they hit big again. So now, most recently, we have seen, after big consolidation, a big up move in the summer in the share price, right? Up to here, everything here, as you can see, we're more or less going sideways in 2025, right? But here we break out monster up move. We basically go from 60 to 95 in about a month. Even for an explorer, that's a big move. So what happened here? So two things happened. First thing is they started a new exploration program, about 5,500 meters. That's pretty big for an explorer. Now, Hercules is not a tiny explorer anymore, market cap of about 195 million Canadian, 140 US, right? But still, 5.5 kilometers, that's a lot. It's great, right? But that's a lot. Now, about 3,000 of the 5,500 are already drilled, and management expects results to come out in August and September. And the first results from the very first drill holes that they made already suggest, hey, this copper deposit could be bigger, even bigger than expected before, to the northeast and to the south. And obviously that pushed the share price higher, because now we are talking, if this holds true, then the Leviathan project in the new Idaho copper belt has the potential to be in the tier 1 league of some of the best copper deposits in the world. Now, we're not there yet by any means, but this potential is there. And this is also important to keep in mind. We're going to talk about this a little later when we talk about the upside. The second thing that happened, obviously you can see it here, we broke the downtrend. We broke the downtrend. Afterwards, stock shoots up. We had a positive, remember we have the positive fundamental news of the potential of this deposit being much larger than so far anticipated, and also anticipating drill results could come fast, but definitely are expected to be in this month of August, because we already have August and September. So a lot coming up in Hercules Metals, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to present the company to you now at the beginning of August. It kind of was just a coincidence that it came together with a crash in the copper market. So then we see this big down move though. What happened here? Well, and to understand that, let me switch to the presentation real quick. Okay, so here you have the map of the Idaho copper belt, and you can see in the middle Hercules Metals, the claims that they have. You see the black, that's the Leviathan project. And then in the lighter gray, you see all the claims that Barrick stacked as a result of this, of the finding of the new copper deposit. Now, Hercules Metals and Barrick came to an agreement that gives Hercules the option to buy all these Barrick claims for a pretty cheap price of 8 million Canadian in either cash or stocks over the next 3 years. So with this, Hercules will basically increase their land package in this Idaho copper belt by 4x. That is great. But hold on. That also means a lot more money is needed. And that is what led to the sell-off. Because first off, you need to do maintenance, that costs something, but then you need to do exploration, and that will cost a lot. So that's the first reason for the sell-off. The second reason is that right after Barrick and Hercules Metals announced the deal, and keep in mind that Barrick owns 13% of Hercules Metals. Hercules Metals announced a capital raise of around 17.3 million Canadian at 70 cents a share, no warrants. Now, no warrants is great, but to be honest, that's the new normal now in the new mining in the new rally phase that we're in the mining sector. 2 years ago, no way you could raise money without at least a quarter or half a warrant. Now, if you see a capital raise and the company has to throw in a warrant additionally to stocks, that's a big, big warning sign. That tells you something is not really great with the project, because that's not standard anymore. But Hercules had to issue a discount, and that's why the stock went down right after the Barrick news. So let's start with this. This is a clever deal for Barrick. And why is Barrick doing this? They buy up all these claims, and now they're basically optioning them out to Hercules Metals. It's very common for senior producers and big junior producers to let the grassroots exploration be done by small junior explorers. They're really good at that, and the big seniors are not, right? Barrick has a lot of other problems that they need to work on, right? Hashtag Mali, right? They obviously have the money, but they would rather have their management focus on all the other issues that are looming up than to develop these projects. By optioning it off to Hercules Metals, Hercules Metals can develop these land packages further, do the exploration. If they hit big, well, Barrick owns 13%, then we'll probably take the other 8 million that Hercules Metals has to pay in shares, increase their share count. All right? So they have upside in the project, and obviously, because they already have that stake in Hercules Metals, they are in the driver's seat for a takeover of Hercules Metals if this project really hits big. Right? If Leviathan is what is now potential being a tier 1 world-class copper deposit in the US, that's huge. Right? And here comes into handy that I talk a lot to managements, that I talk a lot to Wall Street, that I am on Wall Street regularly. You need to understand that management, CEOs, they would like to make you believe that they make all the decisions in the best interest of the company, but the reality is they make a lot of decisions out of ego and out of personal strategic career moves. So if you're the CEO of a big company like Barrick, for example, buying up Hercules Metals today for, let's say, $250, $300 million, super early stage exploration for a senior producer, that does nothing to move the needle for you, because you have to answer. Remember, you're the CEO of the company, but you don't own the company. You still have bosses. You have to answer to the board. You have to answer to the shareholders. So you want to do deals that make you look really good, right? That really show this guy makes the big deals that transform Barrick. $300 million deal Canadian, that's nothing that moves the needle for a big company like Barrick. However, if Hercules does all this development and exploration, they hit big. This really becomes a tier 1 copper project, a new one in the US. And then Barrick swoops in and buys it up for $1 billion. Now that is something that Wall Street will notice. And that will make the CEO look good. Right? They much rather, and with they, I mean the managements, a lot of managements, they much rather overpay, but then they get a more secure project and a spectacular headline that makes them look good, than try to make a stellar deal that might pay off big time in the future, but nobody's going to give them any credit for, nobody's going to pay attention. That doesn't make much sense. So that is the reason of Barrick management, why they're doing what they did. So what do we do with Hercules, and why do I like the stock, and how do you play it? So this is an advanced explorer in the US for copper. Great. Copper made in the US, I told you this before, this will be the #1 copper story in the world. this will be the most valuable projects, meaning if this really turns out to be what the CEO indicated this could be, right? And the new exploration program that is coming out, the results are coming out now, could confirm this, and I stress the word could. We're talking about a company that's 140 million US in market cap that then would sit on the biggest land package of a tier 1 world-class copper project, new one in the US, completely undeveloped. That is the upside. And that upside is significant. On the other hand, the risk, and this is the interesting part, is limited. Why? We know the copper is there. It's just a question of how much is there, how big is this deposit? How big is the Leviathan deposit, right? And as you can see, it is open in different directions. Right now, they're exploring the southern part and northeastern part. It's also open to depth. So they don't really know how big this is. But it is there. We know that. So this risk is basically taken off the table. That makes it interesting. We also have a very clear scenario how this could play out in a success case, which is really nice, right? I do not think that Hercules Metals will have the financial power to develop this into a mine, but Barrick surely does. They already own a 13% stake, so they're the clear leader for a deal, for a takeover here scenario for Hercules Metals. That is really good because oftentimes we kind of don't know who could be the buyer. Now, we're probably not going to get a competition of potential buyers. That's unfortunate, but we can't have it all. It's nice to know that we have a clear scenario of a potential buyer here, which again reduces the risk, right? We have the exploration results coming in. They could be huge. They could be partially disappointing. We don't know, but big news flow is coming. So that's all what's happening. A lot's going to happen here within the next month. But what will also happen over the next years will be dilution, because exploring just a Leviathan project and now the Barrick gold land that got acquired, that'll take a lot of money. So dilution will happen, and that means this stock is not a buy at any level. We need to protect ourselves from the dilution as much as possible. That means I want to buy this stock on weakness. I'm not buying this stock at 80 or higher. If I miss out on it, I miss out on it. The price we have right now is an attractive price. We are also, if you look at it from a chart technical perspective, we retested the breakout of the downtrend. That is textbook. So if we turn around here, right, considering that we have the news flow coming of the exploration, could work well together, this could shoot up. But if we get overall weakness in the market, short-term sell-off could easily get us down to this area right here, like the most traded zone around like 67 to around 62. And that's a great buying opportunity. That's where I would get on board. Obviously, we would love to get it down here in this blue zone, which was the perfect accumulation zone. I don't think that's going to happen unless we got a major crash in the market where everything goes down. The reason being, we are reaching a different phase of the company, especially if their exploration results are good. So buying on weakness will help us. The second thing that we can do here is, if you're interested in this story, and now you'll ask yourself, well, what is the upside? What could come out of this? I think if they really hit on this exploration program or the one following, if this deposit becomes big, doesn't really have to be a world-class project, but if it becomes a bigger project than it already is, with keeping the higher copper grades, confirming that, I think Hercules Metals is a company that could reach $1 billion valuation or more, but it's got to be a 3 to 5 year time horizon, at least, because they will have to do exploration. They have to continue to do this. It'll take time until they finally have the deposit figured out and then come and bring out a resource pre-feasibility study. All this will take time. However, right, okay, now you might say, all right, billion-dollar company, cool, we're $140 million market cap US, so this is like a 7-bagger, right? Yes, in market cap, but in the share price, probably not, because we're going to get dilution. So I see this more as a 3 to 5-bagger at the moment. But then, on the other hand, the risk side is limited. So that's what makes this interesting. But again, it will depend on how you invest in this company and are you willing to keep this time horizon for the investment, right? You need to be willing to put more money into the company when they do placements and capital raises to try to fight the dilution as much as you can. If you're not willing to do that, if you just want to put in like a one-time amount and just let it ride and keep your fingers crossed and hope for the best, in that case, I would just put a deep limit order and just see what happens. And if this thing turns around and runs without you, then that happens. But these type of explorer stories, even though the risk side is lower on the project, right? And we have a very powerful partner with Barrick, and we know the risk side on getting money at pretty okay to good conditions is very low for an explorer of Hercules state. But we need to be willing to adjust to the dilution part because that is going to come. And again, long-term time horizon is needed with it. But if you're looking for a play in the US copper sector that has big time upside, right? Because I'm saying 3 to 5 bagger, but if they really hit big on this exploration program or the following ones, and this really turns into a completely new copper project, tier 1, world-class levels, high copper grades, this could go much higher, the valuation of this company and the share price, right? So the upside is there. We get the upside. Upside is uncertain, but it's there. That's what I like about it. So if you want a play that has fairly low risk for being an explorer, still has risk, you need to be aware of this, right? Theoretically, the exploration program could be a gigantic failure. And multi-bagger potential and big upside potential. Then Hercules Metals is interesting. Now, you can also go out and look at the smaller companies that have claims in the Idaho copper belt, right? Obviously, they have much higher upside because they're tiny compared to Hercules Metals, but also they have gigantic risk. This is one of the big mistakes that retail investors always make. They only look at the upside. But what you really need to do is look at the upside in correlation to the risk you're taking. And that is what makes Hercules Metals interesting in my view. If you like this content, subscribe to the channel. We will do more company presentations in the coming weeks because that's how we're going to use the overall correction phase, the healthy correction consolidation phase in the commodity sector to get ourselves ready to buy up when the mining stocks should become cheap, or the metals, or whatever else commodities and chances we might get. Subscribe, like, leave a comment if you have a company that you would like for me to take a look at, or maybe it's on my watch list already. Requirement, got to be over 50 million market cap. We're not doing the nano cap things. I have no interest in pushing any type of stocks. That's not what we do here. That's it for today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.